This is More Than Money with Mapalo Maku, brought to you by Sasfin Wealth.
Welcome to More Than Money. I'm Mapalo Maku, a personal finance columnist, and I love having money conversations that change people's perspective about finances. Why am I doing this podcast, you might ask? To talk about money. Not the paper stuff. I mean the baggage, the feeling, the emotional, heart-wrenching stuff. We find this conversation so uncomfortable to have, which is why on this podcast, I have decided to have this very difficult conversations. We are going to have some difficult discussions because better money conversations lead to better money confidence, and healthy money dialogue leads to healthy money decisions. Today, I'm joined by Ian Bredenkamp, an entrepreneur and a pioneering force in the music marketing industry. Ian, we've had a bit of a conversation already. I love you. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. It's so great to finally meet you. I'm a fan of your work.
Thank you.
That's when I got the invite, I'm like, I'm going because I'm a fan. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Oh man, you are a wealth of information in the music industry. I mean, some of the stuff you have done is absolutely mind-blowing. Did you always kind of see yourself in this type of career? How did you get into it?
Oh, wow. That's always such a hard question because it doesn't start at university. I think a lot of this starts when you're younger, like in your formative years, I didn't study what I wanted to do. When I was 9 or 10, I just knew that I loved pop music and I wanted to do something in pop music.
Yes.
We lived in the States when I was a kid. So I grew up on the East Coast of the States. And that's where I was first exposed to like hit radio, like top 40 radio.
Yeah.
And I remember like one of my best childhood memories, which is completely connected to what I'm doing now, 40 years later, is they used to run a special in the magazines in the States where you could, and I don't know how they made money from it, but the special was you could buy 9 cassettes and you buy 1 cassette and you get 9 free. So you'd get 10.
Wow.
Okay. I don't know how they monetized that, but I was 9 and I made sure that I went and I got a job so I could afford to buy the one cassette and then I'd get the rest. And I can remember what was in that first order. It was Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson's Bad. I'm giving away my age, okay? But it was Janet Jackson Control, Michael Jackson Bad, Lionel Richie Dancing on the Ceiling, Gloria Estefan, a few others. But that all kind of, those dots are always connected, to what you were doing as a child. And hopefully you're lucky enough that connects to what you maybe do once you're older. I didn't wind up doing what I'm doing now. I only started my company 8 years ago. I was in corporate until I was 40, and then I'm like, it's time to do something else, and I think I know what I want to do.
Yeah. Let's just take it back to your childhood. I mean, growing up, did your parents sort of encourage you to go into music, or they were very strict parents, just say, become a lawyer, become a doctor? Or how was that relationship?
I think when I was a child, I wanted to be a journalist. That was my first love. Loved music, but I wanted to be a journalist. I lived in the Cape for most of my life. My uncle stayed up here in Edenvale in Johannesburg. And I remember being on a high school holiday, and he took us to the newsroom of The Star. And you read these books, and the guy said, I had the aha moment when I saw it, and I just knew, like the penny dropped for me the day I went into the newsroom of The Star. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is all I want to do for the rest of my life. And so as a teenager, and then went and wrote for the school newspaper. I was like, journalism. And then when the time came to study it, I don't know if it's because my marks weren't good enough in matric or because I just had a short attention span, but somehow I wound up studying drama instead at Stellenbosch University, which was probably the wrong pivot at the time, but there's a reason for everything, right? And that's what happened then. So as a child, I wasn't saying to my parents, I want to be a recording artist or anything like that. I said to them, I want to be a journalist. And my dad was like, just do your homework and study and get good marks and everything will be fine.
Yeah. And you mentioned that obviously you were in corporate for many, many years. And at some point you decided, you know what, I am done 8 years ago. How was that move?
I dropped out of university. I did my first year drama and then realized that, to be totally honest with you, my feeling was that I wasn't going to make enough money in theater. And although I love the arts, I wanted to make money at the same time. I wanted to be successful with what I was doing. And I'm probably going to regret saying this on record, but the people I seeing around me who are still my friends, it just kind of always felt like everybody was battling.
Yeah.
And I still see it now that in the performing arts, it's hard for the guys. Unless you're really good, they tend to kind of scrape by. And I, by chance, while I was first year uni, we had a campus radio station at Stellenbosch. One day I was driving with my mum and I heard my cousin on the radio. And that was my second aha moment because I was
Yes.
like, why would that's what I really want to do? I don't want to be a
And
journalist.
I mean, I know the guy.
I
He's
want
on
to be
radio.
I want to be on the air. My
Yeah.
cousin's there. I'm going to go audition at the campus radio station.
Yeah.
And I failed the first 2 voice tests. They told me I was rubbish, and I'm like, I'm going to try again. And I went back and I failed the voice test again, and then I got in third time lucky. And that was, you get those moments when it just pushes you in one direction for the next phase of your life. When I got into campus radio, everything changed. It's like when you meet that person that you wind up marrying, it's like one of those, like in those Bible pictures where the golden light shines down from heaven. That's what happened to me when I got into campus radio. And within a couple of weeks, I was doing the breakfast show. I was doing PR for the station. It's like all the stars just aligned for me at campus radio. And I was like, I'm not going to go back to class and study drama and set design and movement. Blah, boring. This
is the stuff that I
this
want
is
to
it,
do.
man. And that's what I did. And I did that to the point where I started getting paid at campus radio.
Oh, wow.
So now what do I say to my dad? I'm like, I know that I'm a university, but Dad, they're paying me to play other people's songs on the radio and to go and have fun. I used that money to get my first apartment, paid my own rent. I was 19 years old. Who was going to argue with me about that?
But wasn't your dad worried about the longevity of it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he still is. my dad is still worried about what I do. And I think
He doesn't know what you do.
he absolutely was because, and you'll know this, that often with radio work, that it turns into most of the guys who are on commercial radio in South Africa on 12 to 18-month contracts. So if you don't perform, or if they think you're boring, you're out in a year.
Or you're not relevant
Or you're
anymore.
not relevant, but that's the risk that I was willing to take. I was like, you know what, I was young, I didn't have any children, no responsibility, I'm going to try to chase this dream. And I did.
What made you go back? I mean, you went the first time, they said, no, not the voice we're looking for. You went the second time, they said, no, this is still the voice we are not looking for. And you just, that tenacity, where did it come from?
I guess I've always been stubborn, right? But I just really wanted to do that job. I was like, if I could play songs and talk to people and have that magical connection, I really wanted to do that. And I was completely driven. And they'd been advertising for a late night talk show. So I wasn't going in on breakfast. I was going to start at the bottom.
As most people do.
Exactly. I was going to work my way up. And that late night talk show, I did as a double header with a guy who was my best friend for a long time. It was like one of the best times of my life. We did it for, I can't remember how long, but we'd go on from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. on campus radio in the early 2000s. We could play whatever we wanted, and we absolutely did. We were enthralled by the idea of being like young Howard Sterns. We thought we could do whatever we want.
Yeah.
We had that kind of privilege and entitlement where we thought, well, we can get away with whatever we wanted to. And we loved doing it, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best times of my life. But that led into work at commercial radio because campus radio, like the good campus stations in South Africa, and there's a couple that still operate at a really high level, are very good at trying to get internships from campus radio to commercial radio, where the big fish are. And with this opportunity, I managed to get an internship at KFM in Cape Town. And after the internship, they couldn't get rid of me for 15 years. That's how long I stayed. And I absolutely loved it. Yeah.
You absolutely loved it. You know, you mentioned one thing about the arts where you knew you wanted to be financially well. And you still see, even today, that people struggle quite a lot. And I mean, you have talented people. Do you advocate for them to say, you know what, yes, you could be an artist and love what you do and be great at it, but look at how you can support yourself? Or is there something that needs to be done in the artist space to make it more lucrative?
I mean, that's such a tough question because ideally, I mean, like some of our clients that we have now that are in, for example, Canada, they get a lot of grants for the artists so the artists can focus on what they do and get a grant from government and they can be artists. But we're not in Canada, we're in South Africa, so our reality is different. And I don't think there's a perfect answer to it, but I do know this, is that in my experience, what I've done, when I started this company that I have now, I started my passion project on the side. So I worked a 9 to 5, which I enjoyed doing, but my passion project I started on the side. Now, I'm not saying every artist and recording artist and painter and visual artist should go and have a corporate and then do it on the side. But sometimes that's the trade-off.
Yeah.
You know, like it's one thing to be passionate, but being passionate doesn't pay the bills. And when you're a grown-up, that's the hard
When
truth.
you're a grown-up,
Passion's one thing, but passion and debit orders don't always connect. So sometimes I think you got to suck it up and work, but work your craft on the side. Work your craft on weekends and evenings and nights and try to find that balance so that you don't have a cap-in-hand approach.
Yeah.
I think lack of access to finances also impacts people's confidence. And when your confidence is waning, I think we can sometimes feel it without you saying anything. You can feel that somebody's confidence is waning. And as soon as your confidence is waning and you're going out to see big record labels or you're trying to perform in front of 500 people,
You're going to feel it.
yeah, one gets a sense of it.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that can happen.
And that is such an incredible thing, Ian, that you've just mentioned, that there is something about you as a human being, your energy, how you present yourself, that impacts how other people receive you, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think it means you have to always wear, it's not like, did you get a haircut or is your shirt clean?
Yeah.
But there is something about it. And I think it's just human nature as well. And unfortunately, I think we're hardwired like that if somebody is facing hard times, or if they're down in the dumps, or if they're battling because they've had a massive failure, unfortunately, people do not tend to surround them and support them. You know, they always say like, when days are dark, friends are few, right? And there's a reason that saying exists. I think we're hardwired that way, that when you can see somebody's faltering, there's going to be a couple of people who come to their aid, but most
But a
people
lot
tend
of
to,
times.
and you see it in the music business. If your album, you might have had like the best single in the world, if the next one's rubbish, what happens to your fans, right? And we're the same with family. We're the same with your favorite restaurant, your car brand. Our loyalty runs thin. Like we want to be where things are cool and happy and exciting and feel.
And we
feel
can
good.
feel that this person is confident.
That's right. Yeah.
That is, I mean, unfortunately, that's just like you're saying, how we are hardwired in a way. You mentioned that you started making money at the age of 19. You know, you were able to get your apartment and, you know, finance a certain type of lifestyle. What did you do with your first paycheck? Do you remember?
I can't remember what I did with it, but I do know this, that and I say this as somebody who has listened to your podcast. So
Yes.
I had a feeling you'd ask me this. And I want to from the outset say to you, like my approach is very much that I'm still learning how to become good at some of those things. Like I am at a stage in my life where I kind of started all over, and I started a second phase of my life, and I decided to do it in a way that was going to be best for me and for my children, and was going to be in a way that I wanted to enjoy it, so that I could make my life not so much about being in the office the whole day, but how could I find that balance? I haven't answered your question, but there is a golden thread for me around that. I can't remember what I did with the money, but I was probably I was 19, so I probably went out and had a
Bought
party.
more records even.
I paid my rent, bought some records, and went out and had a jaw. Like it was probably something like that.
What is one thing that you splurge on and you do not feel any guilt?
I don't really splurge, and I'll tell you why. I have 4 children, firstly, okay? So there's not much wiggle room for splurging. But if I had to buy something, which I do every now and again, I never know how to answer it, because my answer is hard to say because it sounds bougie when I say it, okay?
I mean, we want to get to know Ian.
Okay, so
that's the whole point. We're not here to judge.
So I collect art.
Yes.
And I collect art because in another life, that's what I would have wanted to do. Not to be an artist, but I would have liked to have been, I would have liked to work in galleries and connect people with beautiful pictures. And what I do now is I connect media outlets with great songs. So this is a similar kind of thing. I like being the broker, but I like supporting South African artists because I feel that I make a living from the recording arts. And if I can pay it forward, there's a kind of beautiful circle of a money trail which looks after other people at the same time. Not in a charitable kind of way. The artists are unbelievable.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, I don't mind spending money on a really great picture by an artist from Johannesburg or Cape Town because I like collecting it and it's pretty and I like it on my wall. And it feels good at the same time. It makes me feel something, you know?
No, I completely get it.
And it's tactile because I work in the music business, which means all the work I did last year has evaporated into thin air because you can never see it, right? But these pictures I can put on my wall, and they have stories and make you feel something.
No, absolutely.
You are listening to More Than Money, a podcast collaboration brought to you by Sasfin Wealth. At Sasfin Wealth, we empower our clients to reach their global investment goals, to retire with dignity, and to leave a lasting legacy. If you would like to have real money conversations, visit sasfin.com/wealth and talk to us. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So you started your company 8 years ago. Was it sort of like easing into it? You were very conscious of it and said, okay, you know what, I'm going to put away 6 months worth of expenses? Or it was more like, you know what, screw it, let's do it.
So I got to a point in my career, I was 40 at the time,
Yes.
right? I got to a point in my career where, and I think a lot of people find this, where I kind of hit a bit of a glass ceiling, where I was like, I don't know how much higher I can go up in this corporate management. I loved it. Like, I loved my job so much.
And you were good at it.
Thank you. And
Yes.
I think I was okay at it. But I loved doing it. But I also reached a point where I was like, well, what am I going to do next? I didn't think that I was going to get the promotion that I was gunning for. One of my senior leaders at the time said to me, you're never going to be right for like this next step. And it's interesting how a flippant throwaway line like that can change a person's life completely. This person might not have meant it at the time, but it did go in. I thought that's probably the case. And I kind of just had a look at the landscape and thought, I don't think I'm going to get what I want. And I waited a while. And in the back of my head, I'd always wanted to work. Now, this goes back to what I told you earlier about buying records as a kid and
Yes.
working in campus radio. And my dream job had always been to work at a record label, right? And I had, over various stages of my 20s and 30s, applied at record labels in Johannesburg. And I'd gone for the job interviews. And as a young kid in Cape Town, I'd taken the bus up. Okay, we didn't have low-cost carriers like we have now.
Yes.
Thanks, Fly Safair. Where were you there?
Where would we be?
So Translux and Intercape and I, we were cool, right? So I'd come up like this, like that kind of Cape Town kid, big city eyes for Joburg.
Yeah.
I'd come to all these major record labels, come for job interviews, never got the job. But I always remembered, I was like, man, but I was good enough for this. I should have got that gig, wanted to get the gig, didn't get it, but went back to my corporate radio job at the same time. And then I had this idea, because I was on interface with these record labels that didn't want to hire me. I was interfacing with them all the time because they are suppliers to the radio stations for product. So I was dealing with these guys all the time, and I kept thinking, I think there's an opportunity here, because I think there's a better way to service radio and TV than what some of these labels are doing. I think there's a more effective way to do it. And then I thought, well, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
I could just start this on the side and start a business where we take singles by recording artists and have them serviced to radio stations. But in order to do that, I need to ask my boss a favor. And I said, listen, I want to start this thing on the side. It's not going to take my eye off the ball of what I'm doing here for radio, but I want to start a small business on the side where record labels and artists can hire my company to have them playlisted. Would that be cool? And God bless her, she said, yes, that's totally fine. And because she said yes, I was able to start it on the side. I didn't take my eye off the ball with the business. It didn't cost, like you were just saying now, 6 months worth of savings. To start the company costed me, I think, like 3,000 Rand to get the website up and running, and that was it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's all it was. And now, 8 years later, these record labels that wouldn't hire me are now hiring my company because we work as a third-party partner to most of the labels in South Africa, and we service all major radio, TV, streaming, online, print, the works.
Wow, that is incredible. And I mean, with the other boss, he said, no, you are not fit for this type of position. And again, coming back to your tenacity, why would you think after, someone who is senior to you perhaps says, Ian, I don't think you're the guy for the job?
Like, there's a bunch of different factors to it. I also had to be realistic about my demographic and where I fit into South Africa and what's happening here in the economy. And I looked and I thought, there's a couple of odds stacked against me of getting that gig, more than just my experience. But I also am like such a big believer in, I want to love what I do every day. Like, if I'm going to plow 10 hours a day into something, or 8 hours a day some days, or 4 hours some days, or 16 hours some days, I really want to love it. And I think I just got to a point where I was bored with my job because I could do it with my eyes closed. And I really could. It didn't mean I didn't love it, but I was just kind of like, okay, it's nice, but it's like sometimes you're in a relationship and you're just kind of like, you're just going along with whatever the next step is. I started getting to
Sort
that
of
point.
autopilot.
Oh, thank you, autopilot. And I didn't want to autopilot. Like, I really want to I want to love what I do and I want to make a difference and be part of something and leave a legacy behind. And I wasn't leaving a legacy behind. And I'll tell you what the breaking point was for me. And it's funny how, like, there's these tiny little things that happen in life, these small things that turn into big things. I was sitting we had one of those, like a monthly staff meeting. One of my colleagues was getting a long service award. So he'd been at the company for 20 years. And because he'd been there 20 years, they gave him it was like caught up on stage. Thanks for your dedication. And he got a gift card to a shopping mall in Cape Town to go shopping. And I looked at that, and listen, the intention was great, okay? So I'm not taking a shot. But I looked at that going, my good God, if I'm going to give you the best part of my life, not that they did anything wrong, but I thought, what do I want to get if I've spent 20 years somewhere? And I was like, I don't want to work anywhere for 20 years. How do I make a change if I always have to report into somebody else? I can't make real creative decisions because I have to get somebody else to say yes or no.
Yeah.
And I wanted the freedom to be able to not have to ask permission the whole time and to make my own mark, right?
Yeah.
Which I want to make my own mark. And then I started this on the side. And then the side hustle became the main hustle.
And I mean, you're both watching this with your wife as the side hustle keeps on growing. When did you make that decision to say, you know what, actually, I think this can be sustainable? And I mean, what's the type of conversation you're having with your family at that point?
If I had to give advice to anybody listening, right, I'm not going to talk a lot about money in this podcast with you because for me, everything around it is almost, it drives the money. Like the money comes on the side. If the money comes, fantastic. But I think the person who you marry is the most important financial decision you'll ever make. And I'm going to say it again. The person you marry is the most important financial decision you will ever make.
That is the whole TED Talk right there.
And people don't get that.
Yeah.
People don't, and not because you should marry rich. I mean, you could if you want.
You could.
That's not what I'm saying. But if you have the right person, it'll prevent you from making a lot of dumb mistakes.
Yeah.
And it'll help you to not take your eye off the ball. And it can be tiny little things. Like if you have the right partner, they will discourage you from running up a big, like if you're buying food on a grocery store credit card, you're making a mistake.
Yeah.
And if you have the wrong partner, they're going to do that kind of thing. And it might seem like a great idea once or twice, but it gets into a bad habit. And the right person the right person carries you and shows you a better way, and you want to make life better for them and they want to make life better for you. There's a lot to be said for it, which I don't have enough time to unpack now. But I think because I had the right partner or have the right partner, it helped me, it made the decision so much easier.
Yeah. And I mean, that is so important. Like, I love the fact that you said it again, that the right partner or marrying right is the best or worst financial decision that you can ever make.
Because there's a flip to it, which we haven't unpacked, which is what happens if you take the wrong person.
Yes.
And I guess that's also part of life's journey. But you want to have the right person, you know?
So did you start talking about money with your wife at an early stage, or?
We've always spoken about money, and we still do. Like, we talk about money like every day.
Yeah.
And it can be small bits of money, like, I'll give you an example. So we decided this week, there's a grocery list on the fridge with out of bread, okay, milk, or whatever. And what I would do, because I'm not good with money, I want this should be on my rider for this interview. You're interviewing somebody who's not good with money, or not good with saving money at least. Okay. I know how to make it. I'm not great at keeping it. So there'd be a grocery list, and I'd be like, oh, it's getting kind of full. Okay, let me just do the list quickly. And I'd get like checker 60/60 at the house every couple of days.
Yeah.
And then she and I said, but we're being stupid. Why don't we just do what our parents did, which is if we've run out of nachos, it must wait till Friday.
Yeah.
And then we'll do a new list for the nachos and the bread or whatever, and just wait until Friday to do it. So we'll have money. We'll have conversations about small money like that, which is, are we waiting till Friday to the groceries or doing it every other day?
And I mean, surely you can survive until Friday.
You know what? Our parents did it just fine.
Yep.
Okay, so get over yourself and wait on the nachos. And then we'll have bigger money conversations regularly, like a bond or the kids or university or this thing with work, that thing with work. So yes, we talk about money all the time.
Yeah.
Big money, small money, and we've always been like that. We've always been very comfortable with it. If anything, I think that's probably one of the things that attracted us to each other in the beginning was that we were both hardwired to talk about money, and we both come from working class, middle income families. She and her dad have always spoken about money, and my dad and I never spoke about money until I got older. But we've both always been drawn to it, and we're interested in it, and we are interested in how it can make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
Like that for me is a really big thing, is how to make somebody else's life better because you're able to put something on the table. You know, whether it's with your team and your staff, or with your community, or with the church, or wherever you pray, or how can you make somebody's life, how can you change somebody's life for the better because of this funny colored paper which comes across your desk sometimes.
Yeah. When you started your company, obviously, as you start employing people, that's quite a lot of responsibility now on your hands. I mean,
It still
just
is.
even tying it back to what you're saying, that it is wonderful to be able to help other people. Yes, they work, but that is quite a heavy responsibility that you have to face every single month for the past 8 years.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt, you know what, this is a little bit too much?
I mean, I felt it about 4:00 this morning when I woke up. Yes, sure. Especially during COVID, you know, which came with its challenges for some markets. But I got to tell you that my staff, the best money I spend every month is on their salaries because they are unbelievable. Like I can be here talking with you this morning, and while I'm hanging out with you, they're busy getting work done, and they're fantastic at it. And I can't think of a better team. And so they're the best money that I spend in the business is on my team, and I'd gladly do it. I wish I could find a way to multiply them because I have tried to find more people to bring into the fold. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I think starting a business is harder if you have not studied how to start a business like I have. I mean, I did 1 year of drama. That's hardly financial planning and business management education there, you know. But you've got to kind of learn as you go.
What are some of the lessons as an entrepreneur, as a business owner that you've learned, perhaps even the hard way?
I read a lot. Okay,
Yes.
like I read an enormous. I love it. But there's one book that was a big pivot in my life called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and that book to this day is an operating manual on how I run my business. And I'll tell you why. Because I remember when I worked in corporate, I would spend an hour and a half, 2 hours a day in traffic, hour there, hour back, and I'm still the guilt still chews me up about picking my kids up from aftercare, and I'd rush to get there just before 6:00 because they closed at 6. But I'd be in traffic in Cape Town on a Friday. It was horrible, right? And I thought, if I'm gonna start my own thing, what are some of the things? Why would I want to start my own business instead of just going to get a job somewhere else? And it was never about because I want to make a lot of money. It was never that. It was about lifestyle and how can I not leave my children at aftercare every day? It was, I don't want to have those phone calls from my boss on a Sunday, or you get that, that people talk about the carte blanche nerves on a Sunday night. I don't have that anymore because there's nobody I have to be scared of, So I started the business because I wanted to see my children, and I did not want to be chewed up by stress and nervousness. And I wanted to be able to go for a cup of coffee at 10:00 in the morning without having to ask somebody, hey, can I slip out for a coffee? I don't have to ask anybody now. I have to ask my wife sometimes, but I don't need to ask anybody else. So what are the hardest lessons? Every day is tough because you don't know. It's hard it's hard being the boss because who do you ask? When you stuff up, whose shoulder are you going to cry on? Do you know what I mean? So, but it's rewarding, but you learn as you go. And I don't think I definitely have not reached a point where I sit back and I go, man, I've got this waxed. I came to you and I said, I don't know what I'm doing half the time, but I know that I've got great clients and I've got a great team. And we come from a place of integrity and wanting to do the right thing. And I think that's important,
That is very important. And I think, that's the stuff that keeps your clients being your clients.
Yeah, I think so. We were very, very blessed in that 99% of our work is referral based. I might do a pitch every couple of months, like a cold pitch, because most of it just comes to us because of the quality of our work and because we want to do the right thing and because I think the biggest lesson I've learned is when to say no. Like, that's a hard one. When you start a business, like, you want to make money and pay the bills. So you tend to say yes to anything that comes your way. Man alive, that's a mistake. But it comes with time.
Yes.
You learn when to say no to something. And I remember the first time I said no to money, I was like, they
Who
were
is
offering to
this
pay me, and I
person?
said no.
Nobody does that in
And
business.
Right. But every now and again, and I've learned from it, but every now and again I still make the mistake because do I take this on or don't we?
Yes.
And
Do you normally regret it when you knew that the answer should have been no?
Of course.
And you
Yes.
said, well,
I should have listened to my little voice. But as I get older and wizened, you start to spot it before it comes your way.
yeah,
You know, but you don't
that
spot
is
it in the beginning. How do
incredible.
you know in the beginning? Like even if I'd done a BCom and an MBA, where would they teach you
Yeah.
to listen to your little voice and
Nowhere.
how important instinct is,
Nowhere.
right?
Nowhere.
It just comes with time and intuition, I guess, and listening and taking moments to pause and reflect. I think if you sit in front of your laptop the whole day, you're not going to pause and reflect and have a moment to go, oh, wait, I didn't think about that because I was just doing email the whole day.
What do you hope to teach your kids about money, about the
So
career choices that they want?
I talked to them about it quite frankly because my dad and I didn't have the kind of a relationship where we spoke about money. I wanted to talk about it. He didn't. And that's a generational thing.
Yes.
You know, like in their time, you wouldn't talk about money. The kids must do what they do. So with my kids, I'm very open about money and career choices, especially because my two eldest kids are now at the point in their lives where they've had to make career choices. And I was quite hell-bent on not telling them what to do. I mean,
Not even a little bit?
not yeah. I encourage. I did say you're not going to make a lot of money doing this, but money is not everything. So I've not. My daughter's at university. I did not force her into a high income, high yield kind of line of work. I told her to follow her heart, and she wants to be a teacher. And I said, if you're a teacher, you're going to make the world a better place. And it doesn't mean you won't make money. You could develop some great app,
Yes.
and you could license it and go on Shark Tank and anything can happen. Just because you study teaching doesn't mean you need to fall into that trap of, oh, teachers don't make enough money. Like, it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
Go and learn. If you want to be a teacher, go and become a teacher and go study it and do your best. She's in the top 10% of her year so far, by the way. Thank you
that
very
is
much.
incredible.
I don't know where she got the brains from.
Good.
And my son wants to be a chef, and so he's going to go to chef school next year. He's just been accepted.
Gordon Ramsay, the whole works.
Perhaps, but
Yeah.
but I didn't push them to go do BComs or anything like that. I said to them, just go what's going to make your heart happy. I think if you make your heart happy, sometimes the money follows. And the one thing I do know is whatever you study doesn't mean you become that. It's just another foundation in your life, right?
That is true.
And there's all chapters, and we're learning the whole time. And nobody goes to uni and does it for 50 years anymore. That's past.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go for 2 or 3 years and spend the money on tuition, go and learn something which will add to your personality and add to your character and will make your family proud and will make you happy. And you'll come off the back of that, and then you'll figure out what comes next. But you can't plan it to death. You can't plan anything to death. There's just different choices have different outcomes. That's all there is. You know.
Would you say you're proud of yourself?
Oh, that's such a horror. I don't know. That's such a tough question. Am I proud of myself?
Yeah.
I don't think. No. I mean, I think. You mean as a parent or as a
Just
business
as a
person?
human being, as a business person, as a parent, as a husband.
I mean, that's so hard because
looking at all the things that we've spoken about, all those little moments that led you to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
yeah, I mean, the context is like I come from like a half Afrikaans background. Like we're not good at like self-acknowledgement. Okay?
Clearly, it's taken you a whole
I
minute.
know you're like I'm dragging this out of him. I would say this that I think my wife always teases me and says that I'm a better parent than she says you're a great parent and a good husband, and I always laugh at that going because I can see what she's saying with it. Like, I'm really, really good with my kids.
Yeah.
I really am. And I'm a good husband too. And I think I run a business that tries to do the right thing and has integrity and tries to make, like, the reason we started this business is because I want people to hear great songs.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it's about at the end of the day. I'm not going to be highfalutin and tell you it's this and this and that. That's the golden thread. I think we've done a good job so far. Am I proud of myself? That's a little bit hard for me to get to.
I should have called your wife for that
yeah,
question,
you should.
clearly.
She'd still be going on. We can patch her in.
Ian, you have been absolutely incredible. I just loved listening to you and how you have connected the dots and how you've taken some of the things that, for example, someone saying, oh, no, you're not going to be great at that. And you just kept on pushing. For me, it's a story of tenacity. You can be good at something. You can start your business. You can thrive as long as you love what you do.
I think people can be good at a bunch of different things. I think that's where we get it wrong.
Yeah.
Like people think you've got to be good at one thing. I'm good at a bunch of things and I'm kind of average at a lot of things and bad at it. I think the older you get or the more you do something, the more you realize that you're just building the whole time. Hopefully you're building, but you just keep going. I don't think there's an end line. I just think you just keep taking the next step,
You have been incredible.
Thank you
so much for being here.
Listen, you're great. I love what you do. This is such a great podcast. I'll come back next week.
Yes,
we'll keep talking. I'll tell you more.
This was a Sasfin Wealth podcast. Visit sasfin.com/wealth for more information.